fundamentally, if somebody brings you into an interview and they bring up that you have a recall, well, they knew that before they brought you into the interview. So it's an issue you can overcome. Now, there's some art in terms of how you do it, but they're definitely willing to negotiate with you on that. But there are some barriers you're going to have to get over to get them to agree.
Tell you what, it's actually, to all that press that comes out, is a nice way to create some leverage on your contractor. Just tease them that you're going to get furloughed in October, so you better get my house done soon if you want to get paid.
Did you end up sending him that thing?
I send him my union emails about all the furloughs. I send him like CNBC links.
No, do you really?
Yes, I do.
What did he say?
He's like, "Oh man, yeah. Let's hope everything goes okay for you."
Yeah, yeah. Let's hope
We're going to do that insulation right away.
Yeah.
Has it been effective? As it seems like things are progressing at a more rapid rate?
No, I mean, contractor, you might as well be talking to a stripper. I mean, they're just like the same exact person.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Welcome to the 21.5 Show, a podcast for professional pilots by professional pilots. Join Dylan and Max, both with experience in flight instruction, the airlines, and business aviation, as they talk to a variety of industry experts, share stories, and have a little fun along the way.
We're back.
Holla!
Another episode of the 21.5 Show. Max, Dylan, two men living in Arizona doing a show.
It's so hot here.
God, it's horrible.
Ah! It's okay. A lot of people have bigger problems than the heat.
Good point.
If anyone's been on our Instagram, I did a couple little videos of me. I started doing a little tailwheel training in a Super Cub.
Yes. Finally becoming a man.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I looked at it and I said, this is the time, right? Not a lot going on. This would be a good time to stay current and also build a new skill. And I think some of that.
I wish you guys could see him right now moving the
moving this. Yeah, it's kind of. But I think it might actually translate a little bit into my professional flying, building that skill.
You know what's funny is the guy I flew with at my last corporate job. I flew with him for 7 or 8 years, something like that, a long time. So he knew me flying very, very well. And when I started flying small airplanes again, he could immediately pick up on it. He's like, "You've been flying small airplanes again, haven't you?" And I hadn't said anything to him.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
Cheating on me. I smell that 100 low lead on you.
He wasn't offended.
It's been a lot
of
of
open relationship.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So
that's good. Cross all the barriers.
Right.
It's been good. And if anyone has a chance to do it that hasn't done the training, man, it is a challenge. And it gets you working again, make your feet move. I haven't used a rudder pedal in 15
Renewing
years.
your relationship with the rudder, would
Exactly,
you say?
Yeah. Renting a Cub or something, it's not that expensive compared to trying to go fly a Cirrus or something like that. So recommend it. And if you're in the Arizona area, if you see a Super Cub just bouncing down the runway in Chandler, 3-point, 2-point, back to 3-point, float, that's me. One other thing we were talking about doing some flying, staying current, we've talked about this before, is some of those upset recovery programs.
Yes, big advocate.
And I know we've talked about this on the show before, but sometimes even your insurance can pay for that. Obviously, this is more for business aviation folks, but you can go do those courses possibly for free.
Yep,
So,
I've done it before.
Yeah.
It was USAIG, Performance Vector Program, they called it, and they put you through the 3-day course, free 90 free.
That's awesome. And also a good way to stay current and maybe not cost a lot. So
Yep, hone your skills, do something a little different, and it's all good stuff.
Hey, Max, wanted to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Matthew C., who clicked the donate button on our website.
That's right. I've been chatting with him on LinkedIn. He's a super good dude. So thank you, Matthew. We appreciate it. We got some of our very valuable stickers headed your way.
Yeah, and that is that. I don't want to say that's the reason, but donations like that give us the ability to get these soundboards, which then allow us to play, some sound effects.
I think that is the single most offensive button.
I think that's the worst one. Yeah. So just keep those donations rolling. Who knows what we'll buy next? I don't know. It's going to be really good. So we should chat a little bit about the mailbag now. I got a ton of messages from folks about Derek Vento on the last episode. A lot of comments on the furlough flute. Not as many hateful messages as I would have thought.
Did we get any?
I didn't get any. So,
well, again, we hope we didn't offend anybody. We're just trying to have a little fun.
But a lot of people said that they want to buy a furlough flute sticker.
We're working on that.
So we're working on that.
We got some ideas.
We've got some definite plans in the mix. Let's actually dig into the mailbag though and see what folks
this is saying. Just we have a group text with myself, Dylan, and Ted from Great Talk with Ted. You just heard. So
if you donate on the website, also that's an option. We can add you into that group.
Yeah, or we just give you Ted's phone number.
Yeah, right.
He sent us a text. He goes, just out of the blue, man, the ATC guy really likes going to work. Maybe you guys should have asked him why they feel the need to give me taxi instructions while I'm still doing 100 knots on landing rollout. Maybe he can get me an answer to that after he's done off to himself. Unfiltered as usual.
We also got an email from one of our listeners from way back when we got going, Rachel. She says, "Hey guys, just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed this latest podcast with Derek. There was some really good info in there, as usual. I love the relationship we share with ATC. As a labor rep on our ASAP ERC, I'm very involved with the CISP program with ATSAP. So this was right up my particular alley. Thanks again, and keep up the great work. Thank you for all those acronyms. I don't really know what any of those are, but I know you work with the ASAP reports at your airline. So
something with ATC.
Yeah,
I think. Air traffic.
Yeah, we'll Google those later.
Something. Email from Nick. Guys, I'm listening to the latest podcast with Derek, and his interesting points make me feel compelled to comment. I'm a former military guy who turned 121 a few years ago. One of the biggest potential safety hazard things I have noticed at major airports has been the lack of standardization with taxiing. For instance, Chicago has standard taxi routes they want you to keep moving no matter what. Find out if your gate is open and ramp clears you in. Conversely, in Dallas, you better stop that aircraft if there's a question. When you arrive at a spot, you wait for ramp to call you. I can go on and on about every other major airport. I know the controllers are rock stars and they all want us to succeed, but a standardized ground operations procedure would prevent countless incidents, confusion, and potential FAA actions every year. In my mind, it would be well worth the cost, time, and effort to standardize the process. Just my 2 cents. Now back to the podcast. 3 down and locked. Nick. You know, he makes a really good point. In a business where everything is so standardized, so everybody knows what's going on, the ground game couldn't be less standardized.
The only thing less standardized than ground stuff is U.S. Customs.
Yeah, right.
That's the lowest hanging fruit, what we need to get figured out first. But he has a good point. You and I were both based out of O'Hare, and that was a cool experience. Like, you feel so cool, like operating there, and just like once you understand the system and everything just kind of works.
Do you remember the first time on IOE when they pull up and you're just monitoring ground and they call your flight number and say, you know, taxi to, at the time, remember 32 left, Tango 10? I don't even think that's still open now or whatever.
I don't even know. Yeah.
And they give you this whole taxi instruction. You have your pen and your paper, and you just look over the captain like,
I'm ready.
He goes,
I'm so ready.
I got
it. Don't worry
he
about
starts
it.
Driving. Yeah. It's so funny. But yeah, he's right. Some airports you can't stop moving. Other airports you better not move without a taxi clearance. I mean, it's insane.
Now, will you talk a little bit about? It's been a while since I've had the ops manual from an airline where there's like standard taxi routes, right? And don't they have like familiarization pages at airports that are like company specific things or not really?
Well, they're more they're just standardized taxi routes at that airport.
But it doesn't give you any like a local heads up, like aircraft should not stop here or do this or
no. It basically gives you step-by-step instructions. So the ones that come to mind the most where I was flying and stuff is Atlanta. So you'd land way out in BFE and you'd get like the black route or the purple route or whatever, and it was, you know, taxi here, turn left here, go up here, hold short of this runway, called, you know, or whatever it was.
Right.
So those actually aren't bad because that's standardized. You know what the program is, and you kind of look before you land and you figure out, okay, the black route is this.
Yeah.
And you highlight it on your jet.
out.
It's really nice now with the iPad. You highlight the route and you just follow the line.
Right.
But yeah.
So what do you think is the solution? Like, do you think anything's ever going to change? Because
I'll tell you what. Is there anywhere in the FAA issued paperwork for O'Hare it says don't stop moving?
I can't imagine.
I don't know that there is. There's probably in the company page, we have like for each station it says, gives you the heads up on certain things. It probably says informally in there, but
that's what I was asking you, if there's those kind of informal.
I don't know.
Well, what'll be interesting, and I think what may bring standardization is later on, are instructions going to start coming over CPDLC at some point in the future? Or is there going to be more automation?
I don't know. That's got to be the last one because it's so dynamic.
Yeah.
And if somebody screws up, the reaction's got to be so quick, so swift, on the ground. So I don't know.
I was in O'Hare one time, and there was a foreign carrier, and they were trying to do good. They got off the runway. I think it was a 747 or something, and they were like, oh yeah, we got to keep moving. We're in Chicago. So they get off and they turn on the wrong runway and come up on the taxiway nose to nose with another airplane. And the guy comes on in an accent and he's like, O'Hare ground, what do you want us to do? And the ground comes back and he goes, I want you to disappear.
Dude, there's a million O'Hare stories. I remember I landed there in a snowstorm and you'd go to the penalty box. They have these holding pads and we land and it's just a complete disaster there. And the gate's occupied. All the holding pads, they have nowhere to put us. So we just kept driving and this terminal in the middle and you can do a loop around the terminals. We just kept driving. We were about to run out of gas, dude. We're like, I remember I called ground. I'm like, ground, Eagle Flight, whatever. I don't know how quite to say this, but we're at minimum fuel. Like we're going to run out of gas driving around in circles. And and it finally worked out and our gate opened up or whatever. But I mean, it's endless there.
I want some of our listeners who are based out of O'Hare to send us a message because here's something we didn't consider. Things are way down traffic-wise in O'Hare right now.
Yeah.
So have they changed their... I mean, the whole reason why O'Hare especially does it is because it's so crazy busy that they have to do it to keep things moving.
Yeah.
So now that things aren't busy, I wonder if they've changed some of those policies.
Well, just think... Yeah, and I think the part of the thing, too, is it's just an older airport. It's just an old design. You look at Denver, which is probably one of the newest big airports around, and it's just spread out over acres of...
Right.
It's crazy.
They got more room. So thanks for getting us out on a tangent, Nick. But we've answered nothing, but we did get a chance to share some O'Hare stories. So yeah, if you're based in O'Hare, let us know. Are they still doing that with the reduced traffic or what's going on?
Yeah, or if anybody knows an O'Hare controller, I'd love to talk to one of those guys.
Oh yeah, that would be really cool. All right, last thing from one of our buddies, Jesse on LinkedIn. He shared our post. He said, 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast is back with a new episode and bringing some much needed comedy during this difficult time. And then he writes out a little story. He goes, me, laughing hysterically. My wife, what's so funny? Me, the furlough flute. They have a furlough flute. He continues laughing hysterically. Wife, blank, confused stare, followed by annoyed eye roll. Aviation humor. I thought that was funny.
I hope that was a true story.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Jesse. I'm glad that you were able to chuckle about that. And yeah, we're this soundboard. I don't know. It's going to get us in trouble. I have a feeling so. But you know what? Speaking of the furlough flute, we had an idea, Max. Along with the joking along, we thought, wouldn't it be cool to actually find a way to help people that are going to be looking for work? So we've got a new segment we're going to be launching. I don't exactly have the name yet. We're still workshopping that, but it's basically we want to feature a different pilot that's either getting furloughed or laid off if you're in business aviation, either one. But we want you to come on. You can call into the show. We'll record it. You'll get a chance to play a little flute solo via the soundboard. And then we want to give you an opportunity to give you a 60-second elevator pitch to folks talking about yourself and why you might be a good fit in a different aviation job. So raise your profile a little bit and give you a chance to maybe find something after the flute plays. So if you are in that situation, shoot us an email, info@215podcast.com or hit us up on the socials at 215podcast and we'll feature you in an upcoming episode. All right, well, coming up, we've got a conversation with James, and we actually kept this one to less than 40 minutes, which was a miracle.
Yep, we tried to
Yeah.
corral him a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. We corralled each other.
Again, like I always say at the end with James, there's always a couple nuggets in there that I'm left thinking, I really had never thought about that.
Yeah.
So
it's a great conversation about handling difficult questions in the interview, especially for people that are furloughed or going to be furloughed. And, you know, I know we've been super airline heavy lately. We also had a really good discussion about some business aviation topics in the second half of our conversation with James, specifically talking about pay concessions. There's a lot of folks in business aviation that maybe aren't flying very much right now and having to tackle that tricky topic with their principals and employers. So a little bit of something for everybody in that conversation with James. So we'll get right to that. But before we do, I want to talk about our sponsor, Harvey Watt Insurance.
Harvey Watt,
Yeah.
the largest provider of loss of license insurance.
So loss of medical, if you haven't listened to our episode, I believe it's episode 9 and 10, where we talked to some pilots who lost their medicals. This is a serious thing. And right now, I think more than ever, professional pilots appreciate their job, right? And they understand the fragility of so many things.
Whether it's a pandemic or economic downturn or a loss of license, you never know when the flute is lurking around the corner.
Exactly. And there's really one product that is out there, and that's the loss of medical insurance that Harvey Watt offers for professional pilots that can really give you some stability. Is there a furlough insurance? I don't think there is.
Nah, I don't think so. No one will underwrite that one.
Loss of medical is by far the most important coverage to have. So get in touch. If you don't have that program, you definitely need to get in touch with our friends at Harvey Watt. Visit harveywatt.com. You can supplement the plans that your airline already provides. Or if you're in business aviation, you can get a standalone plan. So they really serve all the professional pilots in the community. Check them out, harveywatt.com. Back again with us, Max. It's our old friend, James.
Our good friend, James.
He's been operating the suicide prevention hotline for about the last several months, taking calls from happy pilots, I imagine. Most of them have a lot to say, Need some help.
I've actually been a lot happier lately.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you for having me again.
Yeah. Great to have you back.
It's our pleasure, James.
So, James, you've been in touch with so many out in the marketplace right now. Give us a little update. You say it's actually not as bad as you think, huh?
Well, it's a little awkward right now because a lot of folks got warn notices, but they're not really 100% sure if they're actually...
Warn horn.
There we go.
I'm warning you. Let me warn you about this soundboard.
Yeah. Thanks. But they're not sure if they're actually going to get let go. So, there's, the folks that are more junior are pretty much preparing, but some of the folks that are a little higher up, they don't, depending on how their early leave programs and everything pan out, they're in a bit of an awkward position. And it's tough because, even if that furlough gets delayed a month or 2 or 3, it can really jack up your chances depending on how far ahead you've been moving on your networking and stuff like that.
It's interesting. I just got a call an hour ago from a guy, and I hadn't considered how this is going to work, but from a friend of a guy who's taking early leave from a major airline. And so these guys are hitting the streets now and saying, well, I'm not really ready to retire, but the deal was too good. So now they're already out hitting the ground looking for jobs before, if any of the furloughs have actually come.
So you're saying the early out.
Head start. Yeah, the early out guys are getting a head start on everybody else.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
So
some of those early out guys are a lot younger than people realize. They're not above 60. They're well below 60. And some different folks took those early out options, and they got another 10, 15 years of flying in their career. They're gonna go out and they're gonna apply for jobs.
They should go back and listen to some of our airline to corporate episodes.
I know.
It's gonna be tough.
Well, some can go to corporate, some can can go in defense contracting. Some can go into flights, flight safety simuflight. So there's actually a lot of different opportunities that they can go into. Some of them won't go back into the cockpit. They'll just go do something else. But I think to expect that they're going to sit at home in a rocking chair at age, 55 is highly unrealistic. The big thing that folks don't realize, and this is going to sound kind of counterintuitive, but it's actually easier to be the first one out the door. You have a very definitive situation. You're the earliest one out. You have the biggest jump on everybody. You really don't want to be that second or third wave because all these folks have kind of gotten a big jump on you. And that was something I learned in 2010. Look, when nobody's happy when they get laid off, right? I mean, it's not generally a happy time, but you watch like, hey man, if you got laid off 2, 3, 4, 6 months before somebody else, it was a pretty significant difference in what the outcome was. And oddly enough, different folks that you flew with that were way senior to you are now calling you up going, hey, can I swing gear for you? So it's one of those where if you're going to go, it being the earliest out's a much better position than that kind of mid to later group.
Unfortunately, that's just kind of the luck of the draw, though. There isn't really a ton you can do.
Yeah, it depends on the company in terms of how you can manage your early out
That's
programs.
necessarily true, because if your company's offering in a extended leave situation or something like that, that gives you that opportunity to make the decision versus to wait and roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah, and where people kind of get messed up with that is they get this early out option and they go, well, if I know I'm going to get furloughed, I'll take that early out, but if I don't, I won't. We had this program in 2010 where if you signed up for it, they would furlough you first. It would be out of seniority order, but you would get $1,000 a month plus healthcare for 36 months. And none of us took it because we were like, well, I don't want to get furloughed out of seniority order. Well, guess what? They furloughed, 495, and every guy that signed up for that program still got furloughed, but they got 36 grand in healthcare, and the rest of us got thank you very much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. So, when these deals pop up, a lot of times people think that there'll be a better deal down the road, or, hey, I don't want to take it because I can hurt myself. But, the reality of the situation is you really need to very seriously evaluate. If you can get something else and take a leave, you can put yourself in a much more certain position. And sometimes certainty is better than, look, when you go to Vegas and you roll the dice, you're going home a millionaire or broke. It's one or the other. But there's usually not an in-between.
Very similar to an airline career, I guess.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about folks that do take that early out, and they have something else lined up. They get an interview, perhaps. They're talking to either the recruiter or maybe someone in HR or the chief pilot, and the question of recalls and seniority number resignation comes up. How do you handle? I mean, that's got to be one of the most difficult topics your clients face, right?
Not when we're done working with them. It's actually not that complicated.
Okay.
There's two scenarios where this pops up. Scenario one is you never get to the interview because they rejected you from the pile based on that, and you never got a chance to even explain it. That's actually the worst case scenario where folks that we work with, if you can't, and this is why we're such a big advocate of LinkedIn, because you can network your way out of that problem where you can get your resume removed out of the no stack and put into the yes stack. Most people are worried about, man, if I show up to an interview and they ask me, what are you going to do about recall? That's your best case scenario. That's really easy. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Okay.
But the getting rejected before you ever get a chance to talk to the person, that's a horrible situation, because you can send resumes out 100, 200 a month. And if you listen to the last episode, you're better off lighting them on fire in your living room and warming yourself up. But let's say you decide to shoot out hundreds of resumes and you just don't get a response. Now what people do is they make assumptions. Oh, is my flight time? I don't have the right type rating. And they're making all these random assumptions that can cost them a lot of money and time trying to fix when they're not the actual problem, when in reality it was that recall that was the issue. But, fundamentally, if somebody brings you into an interview and they bring up that you have a recall, well, they knew that before they brought you into the interview. So it's an issue you can overcome. Now, there's some art in terms of how you do it, but while it may sound terrifying, if you're sitting in an interview and somebody goes to you, well, we don't think we want to hire you because you have recall. Well, they knew that before they brought you into the interview. So they're definitely willing to negotiate with you on that. But there are some barriers you're going to have to get over to get them to agree. if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay, so it's really a two-step approach because you got to get that interview in the first place, and that's where you're saying, like we talked about last time on LinkedIn, you have to lay that groundwork, make those deposits in the bank to overcome that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we advocate a 4-step process, so the first one is building trust and rapport, right? So right now, if you're in the market and you're trying to network with people, there's a lot of skepticism. Anytime you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, they're thinking, hey, what are you trying to reach out to me for? So the ability to build trust and rapport so those barriers come down so people will connect and talk to you are pretty huge. The second thing is you need to keep the conversation about them, not about you. Too many people get attached to the outcome, right? So they're networking for the purpose to get a job. And that is really not the way to go about it. A much better way to go about it is to network for the purpose of finding out what difficulties is that flight department facing. Because once I can start to learn what difficulties you're facing, the next thing I want to look at is how much pain is that creating for you? Because if it's not creating pain, then I'm wasting my time talking to you. But if you have if I can build trust and rapport and I can find out what your problems are, I can move to step 3, which is find out which ones are painful. At that point, I can figure out, number 1, can I solve your problems? Number 2, do I want to solve your problems? And then I can move to the 4th step, which is how do I position myself as the best or only solution to solve those problems? You can do that on LinkedIn by starting a conversation, getting someone talking about themselves, find out what they're dealing with. The beautiful thing about taking a problems-based approach versus a solutions-based approach. So a solutions-based approach would be me calling, hey, Max, I know you're the director of aviation of Acme Aviation, and I see you guys have 4 airplanes, and I'm sure you could use somebody great like me who can do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? I'm going in talking about things I can do for you before I even know what problems you're facing. Versus if I go in and go, hey, Max, I see you guys have some airplanes, just curious about learning, what do you guys do? And turns out I find out you have some issue getting some LOAs approved. Well, then I can focus on that. If I can convince you that I can solve a problem that you have, you'll get over the furlough recall. You'll care less because you want that problem solved.
And then once you do get into that interview, you've already kind of laid the groundwork a little bit for that.
Yeah. So if folks go out and buy the book, Never Split the Difference by a guy named Chris Voss, he was an ex-FBI hostage negotiator. He talks about something called an accusation audit, which is where before you go into the interview, you write down every reason why somebody wouldn't hire you. And then when you go into the interview, you can start taking those down one by one. So for instance, if I was going to do an accusation audit and I was an airline pilot, these are the 4 accusations I'd be concerned about. Number 1, them thinking I'm lazy because I only have to fly the airplane. I don't have to clean labs or file flight plans right? I've got a dispatch department for that and a catering department and so on and so forth. Number 2, am I going to complain? Am I going to talk to you about, well, back at company X, this is how we did it, which everybody always loves. Number 3, I don't want to work hard. I used to have a schedule. I wasn't on call. I'm not going to dump the lab. Carrying bags is beneath me. And then number 4, are you job shopping, right? Are you trying to get a job with me because you're unemployed and you're going to use this to stay current while you move on to something else? So those are the 4 basic things. There's some more stuff above and beyond that. But the 4 basics are you lazy? Are you going to complain? Do you want to work hard? And are you job shopping? And what you can do is you can start really in the networking process on LinkedIn, finding out ahead of time, have you guys had any problems with any of this? Have you ever hired an airline guy in the past that hasn't worked out? Do you have any apprehension about, there's plenty of corporate flight departments that have airline guys and they're plenty happy with it, but they know what they're looking for. And you can start to find out, hey, do you have any of those concerns? And then when you introduce yourself and when you tell me about a time stories and so on and so forth, what you're really doing is taking down each of those accusations. So by the time the end of the interview pops up and they go, well, what about your recall? We can ask questions like, is there anything in particular that concerns you about that? And now we start dismantling, we call them objections, right? But you start dismantling those objections brick by brick.
That makes a lot of sense. Well,
and that's an hour of coaching distilled into 7 solid minutes.
Boom. Like you said, I think you just can't be scared because they knew that coming in. So you have something to work with. You just got to know how to work with it.
It's coming. So what are you worried about?
Right. It's not a surprise to everybody.
No.
And that was a deal breaker, you wouldn't be there. Yeah.
No. But if you don't dismantle those objections, you won't make it through the door. And the problem is when they talk about furlough recall, that's not the actual issue. There's some issue behind it that you don't know about. The example that I use in coaching sessions with clients is, Max, if I was talking to you and said, okay, hey, I want you to sign up for our salary negotiation service. And that's going to be a 1-hour salary negotiation. And I'm going to charge you $3,000. Right? People are going to look at you like you're stupid. $3,000 for an hour. What's that? Right? They're going to say, no, it's too expensive. But it's actually really not too expensive. The value isn't there. Because if I turned around and said, hey, Max, let's do this salary negotiation. I'm going to charge you $3,000 an hour, but I'm going to give you 100% money back guarantee that if you don't get a $100,000 pay raise within 2 weeks, that money's deposited right back in your bank account. Dude, that money's coming into my bank account from yours inside of 3 seconds, right? So people will tell you all day long, hey, price was the issue. The person didn't buy because of price, right? The reason they didn't hire me was because of my furlough recall. No, that's not why. There's a question behind the question. And the question behind the question is, it's a value proposition. In the case of a salary negotiation, it becomes a matter of, I'm going to spend $3,000 with you. What am I going to get in return for that? When it comes to hiring an employee, that person interviewing you knows some specific problems they have that they need solved. You didn't get them over the hump to be confident that it's worth bringing you in, even if you take the recall. Let's say you get recalled in 3 years. There's plenty of companies that if they have a bad enough problem or a problem that you are the best person to solve, they don't care. But they need to be damn sure that you're going to solve that problem before they hire you and accept that you might leave in a year or 2 or 3. That's the thing that people don't realize. They think it's furlough recall. It's not. It's something behind there that you haven't answered, that you haven't made them feel comfortable about, that you haven't explained the value on. And furlough recall is what you're getting because it's easy and it'll get you to stop talking.
Okay, I've got a question. Let's say, for an example, you end up getting an interview with an operator that you haven't really done a lot of prospecting with LinkedIn, and you're just thrown into this interview. Is there a quick way during the interview to figure out what their pain points are, or is the interview too late to do that?
You can do it in 4 seconds. Okay, here's how you do it. Is there any reason you can think of as to why I wouldn't be a good fit here? Why waste the time of going into an interview, talking to them for an hour, and then following up 36 times via email afterwards, telling them how excited you were about the interview and how great it was, and asking them for feedback that they're not going to give you? When you're sitting right in front of them and you can ask them, can you give me any reason as to why you think you wouldn't hire me or I wouldn't be a good fit? And sometimes they will give you a reason that you can't overcome. For instance, we didn't realize until the interview that you only have X amount of hours in type, and our insurance policy won't let us put you in as PIC. And we've interviewed so many other people that could do a quick upgrade. We're not going to take you, right? Hey, it turns out we were originally going to interview for an SIC slot, but now it's really a PIC slot, and you don't meet Argus Wyvern minimums, right? You're not going to get around that. You can't. Right. So earlier, when I talked about attachment to the outcome, I want to spend zero time following up with someone after an interview that I never had a chance of getting hired by. It's just a waste of my time and theirs. What I want to do is find out, is there a reason that they are not looking to hire me that maybe I can overcome? Like, we were thinking about hiring you, but it's just, this one thing over here, you don't have this in your background, or, you have these things in your background that are red flags for us. And now you can start addressing those in the interview, because once you get out the door, they're going to have a conversation about you, and you can't deal with it at that point. It's done. And with the amount of qualified candidates, if they have a doubt, they just throw you in the garbage. There's 3,000 more right behind you that are perfectly qualified. So you need to find out in the interview, during the interview, what are the objections. Now, if you do the networking ahead of time, you'll have a much better idea on what those are, and you can take them down throughout the interview. If you do it the way I just said, you'll get an answer in 4 seconds. But the problem is you have to now climb Mount Everest. Can you do it? Yeah, we coach people to do it all the time, but it's a way harder way to do it. I mean, why climb Mount Everest if you can ride a gondola to the top? I mean, your choice, do whatever you want. I mean, but we're not in the business of making it any harder than it has to be.
There's so many people looking, they're just dying to get an interview anywhere. Do you typically coach people, hey, if you get a chance to interview, go? It doesn't matter if you think it's going to be a good fit or not. The experience is worth it. In this time, get what you can get. Or do you try to be more strategic, or do you have any thoughts on that?
We had a guy call up 3 days ago, and he got an interview, and he's like, I actually don't think I really want to work here. And I went, that's great. Go in an interview. And the reasoning behind it was, are you sure you don't want to work there? No, I'm not. Well, then go to the interview, because you probably have a better idea at the end of it, number one. And number two, why pass up on the opportunity to go battle test your interview skills? Because I guarantee the next one you get, you probably are going to actually want that job. And do you really want to be practicing? Do you really want to be practicing your short field landing techniques on your check ride with the FAA? Or would you rather go up with an instructor ahead of time, bounce a couple, figure out where your weak points are, and then go up for the check ride? You can do it either way. I mean,
yeah, and I've seen times too where people go and they're not that excited about the prospect of this job, and they leave the interview and have completely changed their mind.
Well, I'll give you a really good example. I mean, how many folks were not excited about a regional airline in February that are now would love a job at it?
Sure.
You don't know, especially with a lot of places now, they're not making quick hiring decisions. So, for folks that have 2 or 3 things in the pipeline, if those other 2 drop offline, then that job becomes a really, really valuable job to them. Number one. Number two, if you get placed in a pool, you don't know, 6 months later, that place could say, hey, your time's up in the pool, which I've got plenty of stories on guys that have been swimming in pools for the past 9 months that are now getting jobs at companies that 9 months ago they weren't too thrilled about. Right now, they're ecstatic, but you don't know how life is going to work out. And so why pass up on an opportunity if it's presented to you? I mean, like I said, how many folks 6 months ago were going around to every regional airline and, well, I got, 6 interviews and 6 job offers, and I think I'll pick this one because of X. Now they literally be begging to get a job at anyone else because it's a different scenario. And that's why we need to stay grounded throughout these interview processes, because a job's a job, man. And if you can get a job flying an airplane in a down economy, that's a pretty good deal. So, I mean, obviously making sure they're doing things legally and safe, and, you don't want to be flying like 134.5, but making some basic assumptions of what the job is, it's don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
That's right. Someone told me that in an interview.
I'm sure that went shockingly well for you at the end.
Wow.
They were like, I'll have to think about the story. Maybe I can tell a little later, but yeah, it was not one of the best operators around.
All right, James, can you give us an idea of how the minds of recruiters have shifted and kind of what questions they're asking now that they might not have asked a few months ago?
Sure. So most of these questions are actually going to be inside the recruiter's head, and you're probably never going to get them asked out loud. But these are the kind of things you want to keep in mind when you're doing your introduction, when you're doing your tell me about a time stories, when you're answering why you want to work here. But the questions that they're asking are basically, so why do you want to work here? Why do you need this job? Is this a stepping stone? Why are you applying to us? Do you know what we do here? Do you know what we're going to expect from you? And are you going to complain about how we don't do it like your previous company? And then the last one and the biggest one is, what problems can you solve for me in addition to flying? Right now, right, when you have an opportunity to grab a pilot that can both fly an airplane and do something in finance or IT or regulatory compliance, why would you pass up on an opportunity to get somebody that can do multiple things for your flight department as opposed to somebody that can just move an airplane? And those are some of the things that, like I said, I like to kind of keep in the back of my head of answering those questions before they're ever asked out loud. That's when you'll start getting the feedback from recruiters of, man, you're just a really good fit. And that's because you're answering the questions in their head before they ever ask them.
when it comes to trying to connect with recruiters on LinkedIn, there's getting so much traffic. You can't be the only people trying to do this strategy, right? So how do you stand out or actually break through sometimes if they've got 20 people messaging them?
You don't. Folks are going about this from a top down instead of a bottom up approach.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, I'm really not particularly interested in talking to recruiters that have jobs open, because they're getting slammed. So, a lot of people think about networking from a transactional perspective, but I'll talk to 10 recruiters that don't have a job open over one that does, because the one that does is just getting slammed. And so my ability to penetrate the noise is I'm gonna have to work 10 times harder and get 3% of the return on investment. So the first is talk to people that don't have anything to offer you. They're much more willing to talk to you. No, I'm serious. It's talk to someone that has nothing to offer you.
Way, right?
Yeah. The other thing is folks try and go to the top of an organization. They try and talk to a chief pilot or a director of operations and they're not ready to talk to that person. They should be talking to a line pilot or a mechanic or the person at the FBO or the salesperson. They should be talking to somebody that can't offer them anything, because step one is build trust and rapport. Step two is gather information on what's going on in the flight department. Because, when we work with folks, the first thing we do is narrow down what problems can you solve. I call it the Chick-fil-A approach versus the McDonald's approach, right? For you West Coasters, I guess it's In-N-Out. But, the concept is, if you go to an In-N-Out or you go to a Chick-fil-A, the line's always wrapped around the building. I mean, Chick-fil-A has traffic cops in the parking lot. And when you go to Chick-fil-A, they only serve one thing. It's chicken. You can have it grilled, you can have it fried, you can have it in a sandwich, you can have it in nuggets, but you're getting chicken and that's it. But it's arguably the best chicken you'll ever have, right? Same thing for In-N-Out Burger. Go to In-N-Out. They got 4 things on the menu: with burgers, fries, shakes, and drinks. That's it. But if you go to an In-N-Out Burger, lines wrapped around the building. Go to a McDonald's. What do they have? 56 menu items? There's never a line wrapped around that building, ever. They're solving too many problems, right? What you want to do is narrow down, what am I good at? What's unique about, what's different from me than anybody else? If I was going to walk into a flight department right now, the problem I'd be solving is, how you're getting 3,000 resumes for one job? I could fix that for you really quickly. And that's why you should put me in your Gulfstream, that I'm completely unqualified to fly. I can't even spell international, but I'll solve that 3,000 resume problem and I'll get you the best people on the face of the earth to fly your airplanes, right? If I can solve that problem, you'll probably tolerate me bouncing a couple of landings in a G550 or a G700, whatever it is. Right? So you want to get really specific on what problems can you solve. Then what you do is we take the same approach that a doctor takes, right? When somebody goes to a doctor, they don't go, I think I have pancreatic cancer. They go to the doctor and go, my side hurts. And then the doctor asks a whole bunch of questions that are symptom related. And based on the symptomology, they can go, you have the flu, right? You have runny nose, diarrhea, fever, headaches, muscle aches. Okay, that's probably the flu, right? So it's the same thing. You figure out what problems you can solve. So for me, it would be, 3,000 resumes and no jobs. And so what I'm going to do is I'm not going to walk in and go, hey, are you tired of getting 3,000 resumes and whatever? It's going to be, you find your HR department's overwhelmed. You find you guys are spending 20 hours and doing interviews and it's really hard to pick a really qualified candidate. Are you finding that a bunch of people are applying for your jobs that really aren't qualified for it? Like they don't have the PIC time or the type rating that you're requiring. And you hit the symptoms. And then what happens? They're going to go, yeah, how do I solve that? Yeah, cool. Let's talk. Much different conversation. Well, if I get really clear on what problems I can solve, and I start by talking to people that can't offer me anything, I start asking them what problems are going on in the market. Their flight department may be completely fine, but they know the one down the block that's having an issue. The one that's hiring that everyone's trying to talk to. Cool. Well, I can talk to Jim Bob down the block, who probably knows a guy in that department. And I can, and he'll give me a whole bunch of information on what's going on. Because what does he care? He can't help me, right? And at the end, he may make an introduction or a referral. But I'm not attached to the outcome of getting a job. I'm attached to finding out what problems do you have and can I solve them? Because as soon as I find out I can't solve your problems, I'm going to stop bothering you. And it turns out people are way more willing to talk to you when you're not trying to sell them something, but but when you're trying to find out what problems are you facing. That's why whenever somebody talks to us in an intro call, I always, usually my line is, we're 16 minutes in or we're 13 minutes in and I haven't talked about money yet once, have I? They're like, yeah, no, you haven't. Yeah. Because, what could I say to you in 3 minutes to get you to spend money? Well, nothing. Exactly. You have to build trust and rapport, and that's time. You have to spend time with people. You have to legitimately be invested in figuring out, what are you dealing with? What are you facing? How is that affecting you? They'll let you know if they want to talk to you about engaging you to help their services. Trust me. If you find out what their problem is, they'll be able to figure out very quickly if they think you can solve it. It's a more holistic, way less transactional approach. And people's guards come down way quicker because they realize you're not trying to sell them on hiring you or, getting you as a contractor, whatever. They realize, oh, you actually care. Yeah, it's funny. It's this new crazy thing. It's called caring. It's a special trick it's proprietary to us.
Yeah, you're selling that just
right.
Yeah. It's actually a service.
Well, I want to shift gears now, James, and let's talk about the folks that do already have jobs, especially in business aviation. In some of the networks that Max and I are connected with, starting to hear some of the flight departments aren't doing a lot of flying right now, right? You're hearing of folks that have maybe flown 50 hours this year. And we're starting to hear about operators and principals asking for salary concessions from pilots because of the lack of flying that they're doing right now. So have you been dealing with reverse salary negotiations with clients?
Yeah, so that's actually all over the place. And it depends on, are you talking about 91 or 135 or,
I would say 91. But
yeah. So, with the 91 flight departments, it really boils down to figuring out where's the salary reduction coming from? Is it a situation where the flight department's in danger of surviving because they can't afford the bleed? There's a lot of businesses that are hurting right now. And so if they're hurting and they can't, I was talking to a guy who's the head of mergers and acquisitions at a company, and he goes, yeah, we're not doing any flying right now. Well, why not? He goes, even if we wanted to, he goes, the clients won't meet with us. So if you take off your pilot hat and put on your business owner hat and go, well, can we even move this airplane and go meet with clients? And if the answer is no, then you got to find out, are they asking for this concession just because they don't feel like they want to pay us anymore? Or are they asking for this concession because the business is bleeding and they need to cut costs? Right? If the business is bleeding and they need to cut costs, you need to think really carefully as to whether or not you want to have a job or not. Because you might be able to run the flight operation with 50% of the pilots you currently have. Now, you'll preserve your salary and you'll work double as hard, but it may just be with 50% less people. The flip side of it is if they don't see the value, then it becomes a matter of, okay, is there anything we can do? And if so, what is it that we can do to make the salary worth it? Right? Is there something in the business unit we can do? Is there something, what can we do? So you have to figure out, before you go into a negotiation, you have to find out where is this coming from? Why is this happening? Because if they're going, hey, look, we can't afford the flight department. We're bleeding cash and we got 6 more months of this. And if the business doesn't return, we're going to shut down. Maybe you don't want to take a salary reduction. Maybe you just want to ride the 6 months out. I don't know. Right? Depends on your financial situation. But if it's one of those like, hey, look, we can ride this out indefinitely as long as we keep the cost below this amount, you may choose security over specific dollars in the salary.
It's interesting because that's something that as an airline pilot, that mentality is very different. Typically where in the airlines that I've been involved in, it's like never take a concession because you're never going to get it back. And there's just so many more things to consider as a business aviation pilot, like you're talking about.
No, it's no different than the airlines. I mean, when less revenue comes in, you have to cut costs, right? If mom and dad are working and mom loses her job or dad loses his job, you're going to cut your spending. A business works the exact same way your personal finances do. When less revenue is coming into the business, they have to cut costs.
Right. I guess my point is, from the airline perspective, I mean, you tell me if you think this is what you've heard, Max, but typically the pilots say, furlough more guys, but don't take the concessions so that to keep the job quote better even with less pilots. And then
you're talking about United versus Delta,
right?
It's a very different mindset depending on the carrier,
right? But I mean, it's an indifferent mindset. I think in business aviation, there's a lot more, like you said. Look at the business.
It's a business aviation. That's
exactly. So it's one of those things everyone loves to tell you when they've negotiated the pay raise.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. I mean, they're both a result of business and tied to the revenue of that business. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a guy who formerly was a senior union guy, and we were having a conversation, and he brought up a quote, and I apologize, I can't remember who the quote was from, but it basically went like this: when was the last time you saw a guy score a touchdown that wasn't on the field? Doesn't happen. You got to stay on the field, right? And so you can move backwards in yardage, you can move forwards in yardage, but you're still in the game. Nobody scores a winning touchdown in the stands. And when you get furloughed, you're sitting in the stands. So, it's one of those, we've got to be careful with pride. And I want to be careful because this is somewhat of an oversimplified. Negotiations are very complex.
Right.
It's so we're oversimplifying this, but you have to be really careful that you understand before you decide to or not take a concession. What is the reason that I'm taking it or not taking it? And does that serve my best interest? Right. So if a company comes in and goes, hey, I just want to cut your salary so I can cut your salary. Right. And they're going to cut you 6 months later anyway, there may not be any benefit to taking that concession. But if they say to you, hey, look, business is bleeding cash left and right, and we want to keep you as an employee, and we can do it at this amount, but we can't do it at that amount. Hey, man, work with them. If you feel in your true heart that they're telling you the truth, right? Work with them. Otherwise, you're going to be a really, really, really proud person on the street in the stands.
And I think too, the thing people lose sight is you have to figure out, okay, I'll do this now. When do we go back to how it was? And at least have light at the end of the tunnel for yourself. If you say, okay, I'll agree to this, but can we also agree that my pay is going to go back to what it was once things recover? Because that's the age-old thing, is where everyone's afraid of taking a pay cut and not being able to claw back to where they started.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in 2010, unemployment was $400 a week. I don't know why I remember that. But I walked around to businesses and I said, as long as you pay me unemployment, I'll sweep your floors. Dude, I am not too proud to work. And I get it when people say, hey, they're trying to maintain an industry standard and so on and so forth. But you know what? Standards change. And when you've got 5, 10, 15,000 pilots out on the street, you just don't hold the same value you did 6 months ago. And the employer knows that. So you can fight it. You cannot like it. Now, if you can solve a specific problem that they have, right? Like maybe you're a captain and their IT manager, then they're going to be less likely to screw with your salary, right? But if you just fly an airplane and that's all you do, and that airplane isn't flying, you're going to have to come up with something. And because I really, really, really think I should be paid that's not a good reason. You have to go out and find a value proposition. You have to give them a reason.
Numbers. Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes for you. We get a lot of calls about, well, the industry standard, the salary survey says this. Well, then why don't you just show the guy that owns the company the salary survey? Well, he did. He doesn't agree with it. Well, okay, then I guess that's not what you're worth.
Not to him.
Yeah.
It's I'm not trying to sound mean. It's just the reality.
It is what it is. Yeah.
You're worth what someone's willing to pay for you. That's it. Just like your house or your car, you're worth what you negotiate and what someone's willing to accept and pay for it.
The buyer determines value. That's a real estate.
They do. And it's a buyer's market for jobs right now.
Yeah, sure is.
I didn't mean to throw a wet blanket on everybody. I apologize.
James, always. See, this is why I talked about the suicide prevention hotline.
Very uplifting, James. Thank you.
Do the flute.
Coming.
James is coming with some good news, everybody.
Yeah.
Watch out.
Well,
ray of sunshine over here.
Yeah, no kidding. James, any final thoughts before we let you go on the?
We're not going to end on that note.
No.
I mean, you got to come up with something
James,
positive.
Something positive now.
So all kidding aside, and folks have been getting jobs. We've had a number of guys at the legacy airlines that have been getting interviews at corporate places. They have been doing their networking through LinkedIn. That's been working out really well. We've heard from a number of different corporate operators that they don't have an objection to hiring airline pilots, which has been really positive as well. So I know we started the conversation talking about, furlough recall, but there's a number of places that are basically saying, hey, look, as long as they meet the 1 year or 2 year commitment, we don't care. So, it's just a matter of making sure you're starting your networking now. Networking is not a commitment to a job. It's getting awareness of what's going on in the market so that if you need the safety net, it's there. Remember, we all have car insurance. None of us intentionally wrap our car around a tree, right? Networking is just car insurance. So get out there, start talking to folks that you've known from that, they're in your inner circle now. Start talking to folks you haven't talked to in a number of years, and then it starts expanding outside the sphere of influence you already know.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
Sure.
I have seen some, go along with what you're saying, a lot of positive posts on Pro Pilot World recently about people, they typically post when they get a job there, and there have been a surprising amount of people saying that they are finding work. So there are opportunities.
We've had a number of guys where we finished their LinkedIn profile and the recruiters reached out to them. They didn't reach out to the recruiter. Whole profile is designed around what problems they can solve. So the recruiter saw it and went, hey, we're looking for someone for X. And depending on how severe their problem is, if you can be honest with the recruiter, they'll work with your, like, hey, we know you're not sure if you're going to get furloughed, and we'll take that chance of bringing you in for an interview because we're not going to be hiring until this date. So if you need to remove yourself from consideration, so don't forget that, be honest with the recruiters and let them know what constraints you're working under, because maybe this one isn't the right opportunity, but they're going to have 3 or 4 down the pipeline later, or maybe they can adjust their expectations and slow their process down for you.
All right. Well, that's a better note to end on.
And the flute.
James, if folks want to get a hold of you and get some more information, do that consult with you, how can they do that?
Sure. So www.ravencareers, RAVENCAREERS.com. We have a new section where we broke out the podcast. So if they want to listen to the podcast episodes, you guys are on there. We do have the blog. And then we also have the industry updates. The blog is more about how to network, get on LinkedIn, resume stuff like that. The industry updates are more what's going on in the industry. And then we also have a new tab that we put up there so that they can register for industry updates as well. So it's all right up the top. Resources and industry updates. They can click on either one of those. And then on pretty much every page, it says schedule a time to talk with one of our pilots. So
I love the industry updates, because they're written exactly for pilots, bullet points now. You don't even have to read an article. It's just like doink, 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 doink.
We would put them in pictures if we could.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But like a little children's color storybook. But yeah, no, we try and break it down. Look, pilots aren't going to read a 15-page article. So what we're trying to do is, find multiple articles, pull just the main points out of there so you can just skim it, run right through it in 30 seconds or less, and you have an idea on what's going on around you.
That's why we love guys like Jason.
Yeah, Jason's our
15-page deal.
Jason spends his
Thumbs it down.
entire week reading news articles for 10 hours a day in a basement with no light, and then at the end of the week writes them. So yeah, he does a really good job with them though.
All right, James. Well, thanks, and you'll be only delivering good news on our next conversation.
Precisely, that's it. Next one's only good news.
Perfect. Look forward to it.
All right, thanks, James.
All right, thank you.
Be on guard.
Well, hey, we had a chance to talk to our buddy Ted the other day, so why don't we play that clip right now?
It's always uplifting talking to get some straight talk.
That's right.
Our old boy Ted.
We just recorded an episode and we downloaded these sounds. And we're calling it the furlough flute. And we have the warn horn.
The warn horn.
That sounds like something you would hear on like a sports radio show.
Yeah.
Should we come up with another sound effect that would signify the no captain upgrade sound effect?
Oh, the displays.
Displays captain.
You were
sound.
so close. You could have held captain, right? And now it's just.
It should be that game show nose where it goes.
No, you know, yeah, either that or the Roadrunner You know how he
Yeah,
just
right.
like shoots off into the distance?
Right.
There goes that upgrade.
Yeah,
Yeah, career expectations.
right in the nuts. Just
Only temporary.
ugh.
So Ted, what did you think after you saw that guy with the license plate screwed to his bag?
I was just confused as to where did the effort come into actually spending the time to do that.
And it wasn't like a vanity plate.
No, it's just like it was just like Minnesota's awesome. That's basically all it was.
Just true in the summertime. I don't know if you've ever been to
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
Thousand Lakes,
quite nice.
Boundary Waters.
I think it's regional for that part of the country.
Christmas. Speaking of the regionals, ExpressJet warn notice for every employee.
Someone just needs to put it out of its misery.
Oh man,
Man, I tell you what, that regional lifer gamble is a dangerous game.
yeah, dudes that just stayed the whole time thinking they're just gonna ride.
I flew with them all the time, and they're like, "Man, I don't know, it's a pretty good gig." I'm like, "It's not gonna be a good gig when your mainline partner decides to go with someone else."
Yeah.
Poof.
I guess you could look at that both two ways, because if you're in the top 10 at SkyWest, you're probably feeling pretty good right now.
Well, SkyWest has been able to survive and grow and keep their costs down to where they can make money.
Well,
But they gotta keep growing to make money, though.
yeah, historically, I mean, go back and look. What if you were a regional guy and you went to Eastern Airlines back in or whatever? You know, it's just because you're at the mainline doesn't mean that it's forever.
True. I mean, there's a lot of just plain luck involved.
Yeah. I mean,
The TWA, Pan Am. You think a new hire at Pan Am thought they were probably in pretty good shape in the early days?
The furlough flute's always lurking.
the flute is just hiding behind any corner
You
ready.
get like a graphic of a little flute like in the grass, like peeking over the top.
Oh man.
So terrible, but it's so funny. So Ted,
Yes.
what kind of general sentiment are you getting from the older guys in the left seat that you're flying with lately?
Majority of them are just happy they're going to be gone soon.
Really?
That's the majority of the people I fly with. Less than 2 years.
Well, that's what Max was just saying. The airport is a depressing place to be right now, and probably will be for a while.
Yeah, the guys I fly with have no desire to be involved with any type of company union negotiations. They don't want to deal with this with the pandemic and the business. They're still being people wanting to fly. They just don't want anything to do with it anymore. The ones that stuck around and take the early out are just doing it to make as much cash before retirement. But they want nothing to do with it. And the airport is depressing as hell.
And then a couple that with, on top of that, being at an airport in Florida. And I mean, it's like full suicide watch.
Just sign me up for that COVID. Let's go to Florida.
Already, you are not a huge fan of Florida. So being there,
No.
it's got to be.
Oh my God. I just did Fort Walton Beach. Oh my God.
Well, the good news is the pools are usually closed, so you don't have to have Paul down at the pool again. Remember, like in Orlando?
The pool was wide open. It was just women who were just way too big for what their bikini, and they're just slamming Budweiser white cans in the pool.
Not even platinum.
They have not even platinum, and they have 4 kids running around. It was just
Fort Walton Beach. That's on the Redneck Riviera, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it?
That's Redneck Riviera Central. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do. I had this one overnight there. That was like the best overnight at Eagle, and it was like, oh, go to Destin. That's amazing. We would stay probably at that same Holiday Inn right on the beach,
The white sand.
and I flew with this one guy who was really cool, and he goes, "Hey, do you want to come swim with the sharks with me in the morning? Let's get up early and swim with the sharks." love them. The little sharks out there. He goes, we'll just get the flippers and go swim with the sharks. I'm good, bro.
I had a guy like that, only guy on my no-fly list. We went down to San Juan, and he went swimming before, like, the morning before we were leaving. And we're, like, climbing out of San Juan. And
You were swimming with him?
No, he went swimming by
he
himself.
climbing.
I would not hang out with this guy. This guy was the good jackass. Anyways, he starts pulling out his wet swimming wear, and then he starts hanging it inside the cockpit on his side around the window.
Yes.
He had wet shorts up there, like some type of swimming shirt. I think he even brought like his like loser swimming shoes.
Ooh.
And those were out. He was just drying it all, and I look over and I just see all this wet clothes, and I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Edward, you
What?
like the ocean?
Oh my god! And
You into sea
Edward,
life?
mildew is a
Yeah.
very serious thing.
Yeah.
You have to dry.
Yeah.
I have an underwater camera. Would you like to look at the pictures I took?
yeah, I was not surprised he
But can you tell us
was not married.
what happened to have him enter your no-fly list?
No. That's the best part. Is probably that was what happened to get on the no-fly list. That was it. And then Ted's just out on this dude.
Was that it?
There was multiple things, but I was out early.
I want to picture. Could we send the 21.5 recording crew to your meeting in the chief pilot's office where you say sir, he's on the no-fly list due to drying swimming wear in the cockpit.
Now,
He was out. He was off. He was on the list before we even like break release on the first leg. Yeah, he was out early. 28-year career as an FO. First time upgrading. Finally, is had a rough career. I get it. Upgrades very first time, and he had a 2-page long briefing to give me and the flight attendants. We're fully boarded airplane. 180 something people, and he brings all 4 flight attendants up and me, and then he asks them to close the cockpit door. We're sitting at the gate right before push, and he then goes down, starts reading off his 2-page long briefing, and with all 6 of us in the cockpit.
It'll be standard calls and procedures.
Oh my god, he was just, and it was just like the most random stuff. He was like, never ever use my last name on the PA. That's how you get sued. And I was like, dude, what is going on in your head, man?
It's completely anonymous. There's no record of your name.
yeah.
They would never find that out. Yeah, they would
no
never.
way to know. Otherwise,
Yeah, the courts can never. You can never figure that out.
Wow.
What? I mean, I don't even know what world this guy was.
Was he
living in.
reading from like
just,
a laminated card that he made at home?
Yes, it was laminated.
Did he
Both-
hand
Yes,
each of,
I knew it.
Did he give you guys each a grease pencil where you had to sign, but then he could wipe it off? to the next-
initial, different spots.
Just initial with your first name, though, Ted, not your last name.
He asked flight attendants for
Right.
a verbal yes
Right. Are you willing and able?
to abide by my briefing. All bullet points.
Oh my god! And then it just went on.
Let me
from there.
guess. He definitely paid for the beers, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, I couldn't. No way I would hang out with him.
Oh my gosh. And so were you filling out the no-fly thing during the briefing, or did you wait until you got to the hotel?
No, I filled it out promptly before the next.
Did you warn him before you might do that?
You need a no-fly list noise.
Well, you know what we actually need to do, and we'll have to get together and put all our heads together. Hopefully, we'll be playing some type of recall instrument
Yes.
soon. I don't know what that
I
would
think
be.
maybe a trumpet.
The recall regalia, the recall
Yeah.
jewelry. Bum, bum, bum,
I think
bum,
that-
like marching music,
Yeah.
probably like a marching. Yeah, I think that'll
I
be.
think that'd be good.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, so we're bringing it's full circle. We'll keep all of the different sound effects. The hiring horn. Oh,
Yes. Yes.
I
so
don't think you're gonna be using that horn for a couple of years,
Yeah. We have some time on that one, huh?
yeah, we got plenty of time to find
unless
that.
someone just got hired at Atlas or Kalita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh, and Ted, we wanted to get your take on that. Our friends at Iceland Air, who fired all of their flight attendants and now are using off-duty pilots to be flight attendants on trips. Did you see that?
That's something.
I mean,
I would not. You could pay me my hourly rate right now, and I would still not be a flight attendant.
I know. It's insane.
There's no way.
I mean, I don't know how anyone would do that.
There's just no way. You could pay me. You could pay me like triple captain pay, and I might do like a Phoenix LA turn once.
Imagine Ted as a flight attendant.
Oh, it'd be the best.
Mr. Customer Service.
Yeah.
Someday, Max, we're going to have an opportunity to crew a business jet together, and we're going to have Ted in the back for one leg. We're going to raffle off the experience to raise money for a charity.
Do I need to get like some type of like skimpy tight outfit?
No, I think
No.
just baggy jeans, maybe do the right cargo shorts. And
I just want you to have one more button down than you
Yeah.
normally would on your shirt, just to
Yeah.
expose some chest hair.
yeah, just be like, and just try and do as little as possible.
Just be like, hey, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. Have a seat.
Smoke a cigarette in the galley.
Smoke a heater right
Yeah,
there.
Just watch everybody.
We got to get, actually, I just
More
thought of a really
Kodiak?
good Ted story. So we were at our buddy's bachelor party in New Orleans, and I had
Oh
rented
my
this
God.
house since I was the best man. So I was responsible for all these hooligans in this house, right? It's no
Oh man, that was a
This is
terrible,
back-
terrible trip.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories from that trip, but the one that comes to mind is Ted is sitting there at the bar in this house and he's smoking. I'm like, dude, there's no smoking in the house. And he just looks at me and just takes a big drag and blows smoke out at me.
And being the person you are, Max, you just left it at that.
Yeah, so I just said, yeah, I'd
Right.
like to avoid conflict.
You know, Ted, we just disagree on this. It's fine.
It's fine. I go, because that, like I said, I had the damage deposit and everything. So I go, Ted, I'm going to ask you one more time to put that cigarette out, or I'm going to put it out for you. And he does the same thing, just looks at me. So I grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall that was right next to the bar, pulled the pin
I got
and discharged the
hosed
fire
me
extinguisher in
down.
his face.
That's great. It feels really good in your eyes.
Yeah.
Like my eyes.
The halon in the.
But I asked nice. No, it was the white powder one. So he was all
Oh my
white.
God. I do remember that. Hey, but in
That was awful.
In Ted's defense, he was like a first officer on reserve for Atlantic Southeast Airlines in Atlanta. Like, I mean, that's a depressing. He was staring
That
into,
was-
deep
yeah.
into the abyss.
Those were dark days.
Revert
I'll
dark,
say.
doing nonstop service to Macon, Georgia.
I think I might have been like a year 7 FO
Oh,
who couldn't hold captain, or it was something bit dark.
Sarasota turns.
Yeah, Valdosta, Meridian, Gulfport.
Yeah, the Golden Triangle
was just-
Regional Airport. Yeah. Not Meridian.
Yeah,
GTR.
Oh my God.
Jeter.
That was a dark time. I mean,
Yeah, you had a crew car from the airport to the hotel.
yeah.
Oh, really?
The directions were taped to the steering wheel. Safe operation.
The one time you wish you would have heard the furlough flute. Couldn't get furloughed from ASA during those days.
Couldn't upgrade.
Nope.
Couldn't get furloughed.
You were just
You were
stuck
just in no man's
in
land.
purgatory.
Regional airport
Yeah.
purgatory.
Yeah,
Just good
it
enough.
was.
And you couldn't have been
Yeah,
happier.
$43,000.
You combined 60 to 65 age change and then a recession. That was a lot of career progression going on.
Yeah. Well, I think that SIC time is going to come in handy one of these days.
Yeah,
It's coming in handy now.
yeah, got a lot of it.
No end in sight.
I still don't have 1,000 hours of PIC total.
Are you serious?
Yes,
That's incredible.
from 172 through CRJ 320,
How much total time do you have right now?
probably
Even know.
10,000.
How much?
I don't really know for sure, but I think it's about 10,000.
In less than 1,000
Jeez.
That's awesome.
Loving every minute of it.
All right. Well,
More straight talk.
Ed, always uplifting and a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, anytime.
I'm glad that you survived this round. But
This round.
let's pour one out for the 2,500.
Tell you what, it's actually, to all that press that comes out, is a nice way to create some leverage on your contractor. Just tease them that you're going to get furloughed in October, so you better get my house done soon if you want to get paid.
Did you end up sending him that thing? I know we were talking. That'd be so funny.
I send him my union emails about all the furloughs. I send him like CNBC links.
Oh, no, do you really?
Yes, I
What
do.
did he say?
He's like, oh man, yeah. Let's hope everything goes okay for you.
Yeah. Let's hope this.
We're going to do that installation right away.
Yeah.
Has it been effective? As it seems like things are progressing at a more rapid rate.
No, I mean, you have, contractor, you might as well be talking to a stripper. I mean, they're just like the same exact person.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They just tell you anything you want to hear for some money.
Now, Ted, which one have you had more experience with, contractors or strippers?
Well, I know which one has taken more money
Strippers.
from Ted.
I don't know. It's probably getting pretty close.
No,
now.
I think one is.
Oh yeah, this guy's actually got me pretty good. So we could be pretty easy.
And the problem is, you can't leave this champagne room. You're stuck in it for another.
No, yeah. I am locked into the candy store right now, and I can't get out.
Champagne room has a lien on it.
There's no bouncer that's going to bounce no matter what you do.
No, I wish.
The only way out of this one is the foreclosure flute.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we got to go.
All right, later.
See ya. All right. Well, always good stuff from Ted. Hope you enjoyed that. Sounds like he's in a decent mood out there. Thanks to James for coming on. Thanks to Ted for cheering everyone up. Thanks to Matthew for the cash.
Yes.
And thanks to all the folks that wrote in for the mailbag. We always love to hear from you. It's info@215podcast if you want to shoot us an email, or you can follow us on the socials. We have been dropping some monster aviation plates. I got, did you see the one I got?
Come in
yesterday?
waves. It's so weird.
Did you see the one I got myself the other day? It says, I fly D2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's deep.
That's a good one.
deep.
If you're in the American Airlines family, you'll understand what that one was. But
I wonder if could it be anything else?
there's no way. There's no D2 airline.
D2 is a level of non-revenue travel at American Airlines. At least it was when we were.
I couldn't believe I saw that one. But we got a huge collection. If you go on Instagram, it's at 215podcast. And then there's those little highlight buttons. And you can go through. I spent a bunch of time getting this organized over vacation. So there's a little aviation license plate button on it. And you can see every single one that we've posted just in quick succession. So it's really, you just sit there and it takes you about 2 minutes and it's pretty fun. So check that out. If you do want to get featured on an upcoming episode for the furloughed flute,
Yeah, let us know. Write us an email. And if you guys have any ideas for the show, or you have something interesting you think would be good in an interview, or know somebody, please let us know. We're always looking.
well, we will see y'all in a couple of weeks. But until then, remember.
Flexibility. It's the key to air power.
And
yoga.
And go visit the merch store.
Crying out loud.
Come on.
Later.
See ya.
Rock on.